Welcome to Business Brief for today. It's August the 26th, 2026. Now, Nigeria is recording a major shift in its petroleum trade, with refined petroleum export to Europe surging by about 767% as increased output from the Dangote Refinery continues to reshape the country's position in the international fuel market. Now, the export rose to an average of 130,000 barrels per day in the second quarter of 2026, compared with just 15,000 barrels per day in 2023. The development is reflecting the growing impact of domestic refining capacity, particularly as the Dangote facility expands production. At the same time, Nigeria's dependence on imported refined petroleum products is declining, with seaborne imports falling from almost 400,000 barrels per day in 2023 to below 130,000 barrels per day in the second quarter of this year. The latest data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration is showing Nigeria exported about 350,000 barrels per day of refined petroleum products during the second quarter, with Europe taking about 130,000 barrels per day and African market receiving almost 120 barrels. Exports are also reaching markets in Asia and Oceania, highlighting the expanded footprint of Nigerian refined products beyond the domestic market. The development is strengthening Nigeria's position as an emerging exporter of refined petroleum products, while potentially reducing the country's exposure to imported fuel supplies. With Dangote also planning further expansion, the changing trade pattern could become even more significant as Nigeria seeks to transform its large crude reserves into greater domestic refining capacity and export earnings. And now, the adoption of compressed natural gas is gaining momentum in Nigeria as rising petrol costs encourage more vehicles owners and transport operators to consider alternative fuel. Oil marketers say financial institutions are now helping to finance some vehicle conversions now, reducing the upfront cost for motorists who want to switch from petrol-powered vehicle to CNG. The renewed interest is coming as motorists continue to deal with fluctuations in petrol prices, making fuel cost a major consideration for commercial and private vehicle owners. Industry operators say transport companies are increasingly exploring CNG and hybrid vehicles as they look for ways to reduce operating expenses and improve the economies of their fleets. Oil marketers say some banks and other financial institutions are partnering with vehicle owners and prospective CNG users to fund the installation of gas cylinders. The financing agreements are helping address one of the major barriers to adoption, which is the cost of converting an existing petrol-powered vehicle to run on CNG. Now, the growth in CNG adoption could provide some relief for transport operators if the fuel remains cheaper and sufficiently available. But industry stakeholders say wider adoption will depend on continued investment in gas infrastructure, conversion centers, and distribution networks, particularly if CNG is to move beyond individual motorists and become a larger part of Nigeria's transportation energy mix. Now, if you're a motorist, you want to take advantage of this one to be part of those that will be financed to convert your car from petrol to CNG, or you can have it both ways. To wrap up Business Brief now, Moniepoint is winding down its UK remittance business, Monieworld, just over a year after launching the service as the fintech redirects its resources towards its core African markets. The decision comes after the company invested about £1.2 million in establishing its UK operations and committed $2.5 million towards the proposed acquisition of Bancom Europe. Now, Moniepoint says the transition is part of a broader strategy to focus its capital, technology, and operational resources to markets where it sees stronger opportunities, particularly Nigeria and Kenya. The company launched Monieworld in April of 2025 to allow people in the United Kingdom to send money to Nigeria and other African markets. But despite the decision, Monieworld has recovered significant growth, with monthly transaction volumes among UK-based diaspora users reportedly, increasing by about 70%. But Moniepoint says affected employees are expected to be redeployed, while customers will receive information on the transition and arrangements for any outstanding transaction. The move marks a shift in Moniepoint's international strategy as the fintech concentrates on expanding its financial services business across Africa. Now, the company says the decision is intended to ensure its resources are directed towards its core market rather than signaling a retreat from its broader growth ambitions. And that's Business Brief for today. Many thanks for staying tuned.